Video games have come a long way over the last 20 years. Between the shit-hot graphics, sophisticated AI, and the hyper-accurate physics mechanics, well, most of the time. Games have become so realistic and immersive that they often provide a genuine sense of escapism. So naturally, when you introduce some punk Gen Zers to Nintendo's Goldeneye 64, they're gonna screw their face up as though they've just been forced to eat my grandmother's boiled carrots. A bit like my friend's teenage son, who couldn't figure out for the life of him how it was even possible to play games on an N64 controller. Nevertheless, I'm gonna make a bold claim and say that N64's Goldeneye is the best video game ever made. Released in 1997 by Rare, Goldeneye 64 became the benchmark for first-person shooters. Unlike most shooters at the time, Goldeneye used 3D graphics to replicate the world of the 1995 Bond movie, a world in which the player could explore the environment outside the objective-based pathway that would inevitably lead to the completion of each level. That's a pretty standard feature of most games these days, but almost 25 years ago, that was revolutionary stuff, especially for a shooter. Not only were the graphics state-of-the-art for the time, but the fact that the game managed to replicate so many characters from the James Bond film franchise gave players the feeling that they were fully immersed in one of the most successful film series of all time. As if you were the one traipsing around Russia, hunting down General Oromov and that traitor Trevelyan. Hell, even the pause menu was cool. I hope whoever came up with the idea of using Bond's watch for that got a nice little bonus. As far as gameplay goes, Goldeneye cleverly introduced an element of freedom that allowed the player to go back and play the game over and over again because there was always a different approach that could be taken. Stealth and thorough? Or maybe just a quick in and out, all guns blazing. It also gave the player a more freewheeling shooter experience thanks to the new joystick feature and more intuitive design of the N64 controller. There are many things that set this game apart from others of the time, but one of its more significant features was how it incorporated the varying difficulty modes with rewards and extended gameplay. Playing a level on Agent mode gave the player a fairly basic experience, however playing on 00 mode gave the player more objectives to complete, forcing them to explore more of each level. On top of that, cheats were awarded to the player if levels were completed under a certain time at a particular difficulty. Good old DK mode. It was also just about the most fun a teenager, or a 20-something-year-old, okay, 30-something-year-old, can have with a multiplayer first-person shooter. I guess some people enjoy hurling abuse at 12-year-old Swedish kids, but the real fun was in split-screen multiplayer, scolding your mates for looking at your screen while simultaneously looking at theirs. Not to mention figuring out the sequence of spawn points so you could go and kill your mate before he's managed to arm himself with something other than a PP7. And then there were the body armor taunts to let your buddy know that you're all geared up and coming to get him before the next one spawns. Zip! But amongst all the taunts and eyeball policing, we could all agree that anybody who selected that short-ass odd job was a dirty stinking cheat. Having added multiplayer to the game pretty much as an afterthought, Goldeneye basically introduced the gaming world to split-screen deathmatch, which would inevitably evolve into the multiplayer first-person shooter format that we're so familiar with today. The result of all this is that Goldeneye went on to become one of the most successful and influential games of its time, and is still revered by old has-beens like me.